Alright, so first off I want to say I'm sorry how long it took to get this video up, and also it didn't really turn out the way I wanted. It was a mixture of my camera dying, and I'm sure you know how it goes, once you start working and whatnot, and then you forget to hit record because you're just balls deep in trying to get your truck squared away. So I'm going to put that disclaimer out here now, but the meat and taters have actually replaced the clutch. That's in there, so hope you enjoy the video. Alright you guys, how's it going? So today we're gonna, well, over the course of several days, because I gotta break this up a little bit, but the cheap clutch that I put in here a couple years ago finally died. So hence the Instagram post I put in my truck on the tow vehicle. So yeah, I kind of had to do it this way. I'm not really happy about it, but I had to do like the transmission removal and everything off camera, just because of the way things happened, of just having to do them after work, only, you know, having an hour or two after I get off work. So I have a little bit more time now for the installation to actually show you guys. So I mean, if you can put this transmission and everything back together, because honestly the hardest part about this job is getting the transmission back in, because the bell housing sits so close to the cab, which I'll show you a trick to get that in there. If you can do that, you can easily take the whole, you know, powertrain apart, minus the engine obviously. But yeah, so basically I had to remove the transmission, the exhaust, basically the part that holds the cats, the clutch, the flywheel's down there, the clutch and pressure plates down there, the shifter's right there, driver's side fender liner, the drive shaft, the transmission cross member, all that stuff had to come out. So it's, you know, the truck is literally in pieces right now. So and I get to open up the garage door and see this lovely sight. So yeah, I'm not the happiest right now about how my truck is sitting, but anyway, finally, about, I don't know, an hour ago, these parts finally came in. I've got everything total was about $600 from Ford. So the first thing I'm going to do, because I'm still waiting on one more package, I'm waiting on my flywheel bolts, the ones that go from the flywheel to the crankshaft. I'm waiting for those bolts to come in because they're torque to yield bolts. So as soon as those come in, then I'll really start being able to throw everything together. Today's probably just going to be the hydraulic system and whatnot, so I figure it's a good opportunity to go ahead and do it while the transmission's out, so I can go ahead and route the new master cylinder in there. So the reason why I yanked the last master cylinder out was because I knew I had a leak in the hydraulic system somewhere. I just didn't know where. So on the safe side, I ordered everything, but the one that's in there right now is also an aftermarket one, and I wanted another Ford one. So this is a Ford master cylinder, the clutch, there's the part number, and so we're going to go ahead and do a bench bleed on this today and then install it. And here we go. So this is the new master cylinder from Ford. Arguably one of the hardest things to one of the hardest clutch hydraulic systems to bleed, at least on the vehicle. So just because it sits like what does it sit? It sits something like that in the truck, so you've got a lot of air pockets that form in here. It makes it really hard, and like the only real effective way to get every single bubble out of this thing once you're bleeding it is to do it off the vehicle. So I'll show you how to do that, but obviously I need to remove the old one first, so that's what we're going to do. And I guess that's the one removal step in here that we'll go over. The rest of the parts are in the house. I don't see the point in dragging them out here yet if I can't install them yet. So other than that, I just need to get the rest of my tools cleaned up and everything, and then yeah, so I guess we'll go ahead and start plugging away at that. Alright, so to get to the master cylinder in here, you have to take off two things. You have to take off the panel below your steering wheel, and then this little metal plate right here. There's 4 bolts on this, one on each corner, and then 2 that go right there for your hood release. and then there's 4 bolts for this. I think these are 7mm, I think, and then these are 8mm, 4 bolts each. So this is just me personally because I already have the replacement parts, but I personally find it easier. I mean, the last time I did this, everything came out destroyed anyway, but like you can see, I'm not even hooked up anymore. And right there is the little rod that hooks up to the top of this. I already pushed it through. There's a couple things you're going to have to do. There's a little plastic retainer that hooks onto the nipple on the top end of the clutch pedal. Like I said, I already have the repair part, or the parts that I'm going to put back in anyway, because it's kind of hard to not destroy this stuff, and because it is plastic. So I just put a screwdriver up here on this side and just twisted, and it popped the rod off. And then there's a clutch safety switch that gets plugged in to a harness right here, and that sits on that rod, preventing it from going through the firewall. The grommet that goes through it is built into the master cylinder, so that gets pushed up through there. So when we go up underneath the truck, you'll see this hanging down on the firewall. But I'll show you what that clutch safety switch looks like, just in case you are trying to save it. But the new one that comes out from Ford is only like $15, I think, and it's the entire rod and switch assembly already put together. But I just stuck a screwdriver in between these two, and it came out fine. Like, I could reuse this if I wanted to, but like I said, I already have the parts. So it sits right here, and that's how it works. It's just a little safety switch to make sure you have the clutch pushed in when you go to start the truck. So it just separates in 2 pieces. So nice and greasy. So we'll get up underneath the truck and we'll pull out the master cylinder. But good news, I'm still going to double check it because I don't want to go and install this Son of Women a Prayer. But the good news is I open up the cap to see if it comes with that little rubber grommet condom looking thing that goes inside the reservoir, and there's already fluid in there. So I'm kind of counting on that already being pre-bled. But like I said, I'm still going to go ahead. I'm going to zip tie it up to the hood latch there, the reservoir, and I'm still going to do a full bench bleed to make sure that there is no air in there before we put the new one in. So, because I really don't want to go through that headache of having to remove everything again. So, oh, yes. Oh, man. And there is all kinds of room in here when you don't have a transmission in here anymore. But let me turn this guy around, up like that. Right there is the master cylinder. So I am just going to try to I'm sorry if you guys can't see this, but you guys are over my head. Oh, I just popped my camera out of its tripod. I don't know how that's possible. There we go. But I'm going to pull this down real quick. At least get it off to the side. But here's the entire master cylinder. The only thing that's holding it left in the truck is just up in the engine compartment where the reservoir sits. So there it is right there. This whole thing. So, and you can see that line going up to the top where the reservoir sits. So, but yeah, everything is torn out of here. This whole surface is already cleaned and ready to go. I'm waiting on these bolts. That's all I'm waiting on. So, and there's one more situation I need to try to figure out here. Is when I took the exhaust off, it snapped off one of the exhaust studs. So I'm going to try to hammer that out and just replace it with a stainless steel bolt and nut to prevent this from happening again. If and when I need to yank the exhaust or transmission again, because that was a royal pain trying to get that exhaust out from the manifold back to the muffler. So, oop, I didn't mean to zoom in that far. So, yep. But let's go detach it from the engine bay, and then master cylinder's out. Alright, so right here's the master cylinder for the clutch. And if I remember correctly, it's simply just sort of a clip-in. It's just this little guy right here, little plastic Christmas tree retainer. And that lifts out, and voila, and then we'll just let it go. Now here is our old master cylinder assembly. Big monstrous hydraulic thing. Also, just a tip though, when you're going to put a new one in, do not put that rod in until you get this master cylinder up inside the firewall, because it's going to be a pain in the ass if you try to do it with this already in there. So to bleed it, you'll just use like a flathead screwdriver or something. So yeah, that's the master cylinder out, so we have no more clutch hydraulics. So she gone. Alright, so this is a setup that I have if you're going to do a bench bleed, the reservoir up at the highest point here. Like I said, luckily this thing's already bench bled. I just tried pushing the master cylinder in with a screwdriver and I cannot get it to move, which is good. So that tells me that Ford already went ahead and pre-bled this, but the sure way to tell is to take that little shipping cap off and actually push in the little not a poppet valve. The hell's the word I'm thinking of, right? Check valve. This little check valve that's in here. So the reservoir is full, and it's this little valve in there. So I'm just going to push on that with a screwdriver, and we're going to see if brake fluid comes out. I need to get some rags underneath this thing because I'm not trying to melt my paint away with brake fluid. So I'm just going to give her a little push here and see what happens. Yep, look at that. He's already dripping. So I'm going to tilt, I know you guys can't see this, but I'm going to tilt it up and make sure that fluid's coming out. Yep, this thing's already bled, so that's nice. I don't have to worry about bleeding it. So the one thing I will do though is just tap the lines to see if there's any bubbles hiding. Go ahead and put this shipping condom back on. Try to push on this again. Yeah, I can't get that thing to move, so, which is good. So that tells me that this is already pre-bled. It's already good to go. hunky-dory. So I'm going to cut this off, and so basically if this did not come pre-bled, what you would do is just use your .3 here. Same, this thing runs on brake fluid, so you would just fill up the actual master cylinder reservoir, let it go all the way down to the actual master cylinder, and then you would just sit there and pump and pump and pump with a screwdriver, acting like the clutch pedal, basically forcing everything out into here. And then once this is completely full with .3 brake fluid and you top this off again, then you're going to go ahead and open up this check valve here with your screwdriver and wait for the fluid to flow out and get all the air out. That's how you would do a bench bleed off the vehicle on the master cylinder. The only other step that we're going to have to do is once the transmission's actually installed and we actually hook this up to the slave cylinder, we're going to have to crack the bleeder valve on the slave cylinder once it gets installed and do a gravity bleed. So basically you just crack the valve, and preferably if you have two people, have one of them sit up here and watch the reservoir and make sure that it does not run dry. Otherwise you got to rip this thing out if you want to get all the air out, because like I said, this thing dips in like a U shape around the frame, and that's just it's really freaking hard to get all the air out on the vehicle. So yeah, but I think I might go ahead and install this now. Nah, I'll wait till the transmission gets in. Maybe, I don't know. But for the time being, I'm at kind of a stopping point here, because it's like I said, I can't do anything without those bolts because they're torque to yield. So those should be coming in tomorrow morning. So for the other meantime, I guess I'll just clean the transmission up and inside the bell housing and take the old slave cylinder out and show you guys that, 'cause that's what failed. Yeah, I guess we'll just press on with that. Alright, so there's two bolts that hold the slave cylinder that we'll get they're both snug now. So, yeah, that's nice. Like, it takes some freaking force to move that, so hopefully that'll end up in a little bit stiffer of a clutch pedal feeling, but I guess time will tell. So I'm going to go on to all data real quick and find you guys a torque spec for these two. Alright, 15 foot-pounds is what we're after. That's one. Alright, sleeve cylinder's installed now, so like I said, that's about all I can do for today. Alright you guys, so next day now, and my bolts finally showed up, so we're going to start putting the clutch in. Here's the part number for the bolts. Like I said, these are one-time use, torque to yield. Right there. Oh, that kind of sucks. There we go, that's better. So, and these come in packs of 4 sold from Ford. So, let's see here. This part number right here, this is the flywheel. Right there. This is the pilot bearing. Right here, this little guy. Pressure plate right here. Where's the part number at? Is it hiding? Where are you? I don't see the part number. Where the hell is it? I don't know. It might be actually on the pressure plate itself. Let's find out. So, I was doing some research on this pressure plate last night. There's the part number right there. So, if you're reusing your stock pressure plate, you need to compress these springs. And right here, these little springs, these are the adjusting springs for when your clutch starts wearing out. So you'll compress this. While it's compressed, you can take like a pick or a screwdriver or something, pull these back, release the pressure, and it'll hold them right here. So that's only in the repair manual, it calls to do that, but that's if you're reusing the one that was already in there and just replacing the clutch plate. And then finally, the clutch, right there is the part number. So, this little guy. So, nice brand new clutch. So, everything's cleaned up down here. I just spent about 45 minutes trying to get that exhaust manifold flange stud out, but in Ford's infinite wisdom, they decided to make it a thread in, not a push in or a press in type. So after going through almost an entire tank worth of propane torch and about half a can.
Monaco to Mexico, from Canada to Detroit, and from Detroit to here, Paul Ricard, a car to car, head to head, almost wheel to wheel, battle for leadership of a Grand Prix between Senna, who has won 3 races, and Prost, who has won the same number. It's anybody's guess at the moment.
I'm happy with that. Alright, now I'm going to clean the flywheel one more time since I put my greasy mitts all over it.
Everyone thinks that I have it all, but it's so empty, living behind these
if you are buying Ford parts, you will need to go out separately and buy a clutch alignment tool.
If I should tumble, if I should fall, would anyone hear me screaming behind these castle walls? There's no one here at all, behind these castle walls. If I should tumble, if I should fall, would anyone hear me screaming behind these castle walls? There's no one here at all, behind these castle walls. Behind these castle walls.
It's so tight up in here to try to get the transmission in, so I came up with this little idea while I was trying to sleep one night and I couldn't sleep. So I went down to Lowe's. I took one of my transmission bolts down and I bought 4 of these and just cut the heads off of them, and I use these as like little locating pins, so I'll thread these into where the bolts normally go for the transmission bell housing, and I cut the heads off obviously so I can get this through the holes in the transmission, and then also I can flip it back out. So I'm going to apologize in advance. Both my light and my camera decided to take a dump on me right in the middle of recording. Right, maybe 5 minutes after I cut the video out of trying to put the transmission in, the light died and then the camera took a dump. So long story short, though, I've been a busy bee out here. So we are almost done. I've literally only got like probably 3 things left to do. I've got a few fasteners I got to check on torque just to really tighten them up, but as you can see, there was no more transmission jack under here, so it took me about a half an hour of wiggling it around and whatnot, and I finally got it in place, slid right in. So the easiest method that I've found, though, is definitely that bolt trick of putting the bolts in and using those as guide pins. I do have a new transmission mount because that one from Energy Suspension is rock hard and I hate it. The exhaust is back in. It actually fits pretty tight with just one nut holding the manifold flange on. So yeah, like I said, sorry, but as you can see, the transmission's dripping because I just serviced it. Basically, I just took the fill plug out of the side of the transmission and went up into the cab of the truck since the shifter's still taken apart, and I just dumped it in from there, 3 quarts, and because the transmission only holds like 2.8. So I dumped 3 quarts of Mercon 5 in there and let it level off, tighten that down. Those are 2 of the bolts that I still need to go back and torque. All these are torqued, and I can get you guys, I'll put pretty much every single fastener I can find in here that we touched to remove and install the transmission and the clutch and all that stuff. I'll put all the torque specs in the description box to the best of my knowledge that I can find. So, but the drive shaft's in, exhaust is in, everything's plugged in as far as all the sensors and switches and all that stuff. So I'm down to the starter, the driver's side fender liner, and put the master cylinder in, and then gravity bleed the sleeve cylinder, and then after that it's just putting the interior back together in the shifter, and I'm done. So it's definitely going by a lot faster than the last time I did this, probably because, you know, I've done this before and I remember the pain and agony and having to learn as I went. So but yeah, so I'm just glad that, you know, I've only, since the video stopped of me trying to put the transmission in, I think I've only been out here for maybe 2.5 hours. So I'm definitely moving pretty quick. So I figured the light took a dump, my camera took a dump, throw some tunes on, grab some pizza real quick, and kept on pressing. So yeah, we're looking pretty good now. So I'm gonna plug away with the starter and whatnot, and yeah. Alright, so there's the starter installed, buried down in there. It's very easy to install. I never disconnected any of the wires actually going into the starter, but the only wire I did disconnect is that purple ground wire right there, which gets mounted on top of that stud underneath another nut. So all 3, there's 2 studs and 1 bolt. All 3 of them get torqued to 20 foot-pounds, and then that nut that holds that ground wire on gets torqued to 16 foot-pounds.
So, and when you're putting this on, there's 2 locating dowel pins on the engine right here, where it meets up against the engine and transmission, that little pocket, and you'll feel it in there. Just put it on top of those dowels, wiggle it in, and it'll settle right down into place. So that's where that is. So that's all done. That means I can go ahead and put this fender liner back in, which is nice. And then, actually no, I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to put my master cylinder in first while I still have access to all this area in here. So I'm going to do that, and then yeah, we're almost done here. I cannot believe it. So I didn't think I was actually going to get this far today, because I know mounting that transmission was it's terrible. But yeah, I guess I better get that master cylinder in, so we'll show you guys that once it's in, because I mean, I wish I could show this stuff step by step, but it's so cramped in here and the lighting is terrible that I don't want to put you guys through that misery. So yeah, but I'm gonna go throw that in and then we'll hook everything up. So
well, that about sums it up, guys. The truck is back on the road. It has been for a while now. Like I said in the beginning, I'm sorry it took so long to get done, but I just wanted to illustrate right there. That's my fix for snapping off the not converter bolt, but the that flange bolt that goes down to your cat. It's got a little bit of surface rust on there, but it's doing the job perfectly. There's a very minor exhaust leak. Nothing that's going to set it code though, but it's 2 little handcuffs basically. You can find them at like O'Reilly's or Advanced or any other auto parts store. And I got a big one. If I remember the size, I'd tell you, but I don't remember the size of these. But basically the biggest one I could find, and kind of like a middle of the road. And I just bought some longer bolts from Lowe's, some grade A bolts, and some nylon locking high heat nuts, and join the halves together. So that's how I did that. The clutch is operating beautifully. I think it's just about broken in now with the mileage I have on it, and it's so much smoother, especially with the Ford transmission mount. But yeah, the truck is running beautifully now, and come to find out, it's actually about to hit 200,000 miles. So maybe by mid next year it'll be at 200, the current way I drive it and how much I drive it. So yeah, this engine's still running good, nice and strong. So also at the time and date that this video is going to make it up to YouTube, we've got some pretty big news. Obviously my wife is at work because the Lincoln's not in here, but we are making our initial progress of keeping the Lincoln in the garage full time. So I'm playing around and experimenting here of how high I need to put this up to get the water to go all the way outside, which you see it dumping right out there. But the Lincoln's paid off. So paid off the Lincoln coming up on 2 weeks ago now, and tomorrow morning we'll be picking up our new ride. I'm keeping the truck and I'm keeping Lincoln. I'm going to keep daily driving my Ranger. My wife's going to take the new vehicle, and then the Lincoln's going to be the Sunday fun day car. It's going to be garaged most of the winter for all the salt and everything, keep it nice. And that'll just be like, hey, let's go up north or down south for dinner, and to try to keep the miles off of it. But yeah, it's already paid off, and the review will hopefully make it up, hopefully by next week, like I said at the time, and today is September 20th. So yeah, pretty big news. So stay tuned on Instagram and whatnot for the reveal and everything. And like I said, I'll try to get the reveal video up. I'm home a lot now. I've been traveling abroad a lot lately for work, so hence why I haven't been able to put up any videos in a long time. But I've got a pretty good stint where I'm home now, so I actually have access to my editing equipment and camera, so hopefully some more videos will be coming out. I don't know about that, but because now it's all squared away. The Lincoln's hasn't had any problems. I do have a video planned for that, because it's going to be getting an oil change as soon as it gets garaged for most of its life. Get some fresh clean oil in there, and if this is any indication of how much oil I'm about to go through. Look at all this oil, it's so pretty. I love it. So yeah, tons of oil. So And then I'll also be showing you guys this new fancy doodad for oil changes. So I have a video scheduled and planned for the Lincoln, and then be tinkering with the new truck. So, and yeah, other than that, take it easy, guys. Like I said, I'm sorry the video didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, but I was rushed for time. I had to get my truck back on the road since we were down to one vehicle. So yeah, but with that, yeah, have a good one, guys.